Welcome back to the Word for the Valley podcast, and this is part 2 of our episode. Now, in this section, Jesus asked the religious leaders what the landowner should do with the wicked tenants who rejected his servants and killed his son. And their answer is immediate. Those men deserve judgment, and the vineyard should actually be entrusted to others who will produce its fruit. But in giving the answer, they unknowingly pronounce the verdict on themselves. So in this episode, Pastor Mike continues helping us understand the justice of God and the consequences of rejecting his son. Let's keep going with Pastor Mike, picking back up at verse 41.
Now, I love this in Matthew. It's not the same way in Mark and Luke. Jesus actually answers this question himself, and then they get angry. In Matthew, it actually tells us that he waits for them to answer this question. What do you think the landowner is going to do to the people who just killed the landowner's son? What do you think should happen? He's asking the very people who are preparing to kill God's son. They're going to evoke their own sentence. Well, they said to him in verse 41, he will destroy those wicked men miserably and lease his vineyard to other vine dressers who will render to him the fruits in their seasons. He will destroy those wicked men miserably. Some people really have a hard time, and it's tough. It really is. With the measure of God's discipline on the nation of Israel over the last 2,000 years, what they as a people group have endured is beyond imagination, right? I mean, the book Night is like 85 pages, 90 pages? Eli Wiesel's, account of he and his father going into a concentration camp and then being marched miles until his dad died on the way, watching his dad expire and the Nazis forcing him to continue on. Right? That is like one person's account, one little story. What the nation of Israel has endured for the last 2,000 years is immeasurable. In fact, how could God ever do that to his people? This is the verdict of their own sentence. This is coming out of their own mouths. This is not God being vindictive or mean. This is justice. This is just justice of what we all rightfully deserve. Killing God's son. He'll destroy those wicked men miserably, lease his vineyard to other vine dressers who will render to him the fruits in their seasons. And Jesus said to them, now, have you never read in the scriptures, the stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. This was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Right? Now it's interesting. This is from Psalm 118, verses 22 and 23. They had just been singing this song as Jesus came into Jerusalem at the triumphal entry there. Hosanna to the Son of David, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, right? They were quoting this very same psalm. Now Jesus comes back 2 days later and says, well, didn't you read the rest of the chapter? Did you read the psalm? We've been talking about this for like 2 days. This is what's happening. That you are rejecting the chief cornerstone, and this was God's plan all along. Right? The stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. This was the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. The stone image is used a couple different ways in the Bible. 3 specifically. The first way that the stone image is used to the religious and self-righteous, he comes as a stumbling stone. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 23, but Romans 9, Isaiah 8 talks about the stumbling stone to the self-righteous. Those who think they can be good enough on their own, they don't really need Jesus to get saved, right? I'm good enough. I'm a good person. I'll earn my way to heaven, these kinds of things. When Jesus comes and says, listen, there's no other way to heaven except by me. To that religious person, he's a stumbling stone. They can't get over the fact that it doesn't make sense to them. It doesn't seem to be the way they thought or expected it to be. To an unbeliever, Daniel chapter 2, it says that he is a smiting stone. right? One of the glorious things that we don't often talk about in the Daniel 2 imagery, because we get caught up on the head of gold and the chest of silver and the legs of bronze and the feet of iron and whatnot. We're trying to figure out the 10-nation alliance of the last days. That imagery ends with a stone being cut out of a mountain on the other side of the valley without hands, and then being sent as a projectile and crushing the feet of that statue till it disintegrates from the feet down, just disseminates right onto the earth, right onto the dust. And that stone remains. And that stone is Christ. He will bring the nations down. The nations will fall. All of them will fall. All of the nations will fall at Christ smiting the statue of mankind's own efforts, our own political and religious systems. They will all fall. I think, hurried up, Lord. You look around to the news, like, what are you waiting on? Like, we're there. Come on now. Let's do this. Bring it. The third stone in the Bible is to the believer. Isaiah 28, Acts 4, Ephesians 2, probably the key verse. 1 Peter 2, verses 4 and 5. He is the chief cornerstone, meaning that everything in a believer's life is built off of Christ. Remarkably, our cornerstone was set aside for a time, set aside by others, rejected, refused, missed by and large. But for the believer who comes in later, puts that cornerstone in place, can build a life off of that will endure all of the hardships to come. He is that stone. Verse 43 then says, therefore I say to you, the kingdom of God will be taken from you and given to a nation bearing the fruits of it. Now he's speaking specifically to the nation of Israel, right? He's saying the way God's working here is going to change. And it's going to change because of how you've responded to God's Son. He's actually going to take the kingdom away from you. He's going to stop working in through you in the way that he has for the last 4,000 years of human history. He's going to stop working through you, and he's going to go to another nation. Now, it's a nation, but it's a peoples, right? That will actually bear the fruits of it. This is an allusion to the fact that God is going to now open up the doors of his kingdom to the Gentiles, right? Don't raise your hand, but I would guess in this room, 95% of us are probably, more Gentile than Jew. Maybe more, right? That God would look at their rejection and say, well, that's fine if that's what you want to do. Obviously, this is on you. I have other people out there that will bear fruits unto me, right? The very heathen that the Jews would despise, right? The Jewish people of that day considered Gentiles fuel for the fires of hell. They didn't think that Gentiles were worth anything more than just to live long enough and then to be sent into hell and to die, to keep the hellfires going for the judgment of the angels. That's what they thought the Gentiles were for. And God looks at them and says, listen, now I'm going to turn the kingdom to them. You're right? Smoke would come out of their ears. Their eyes would turn around in their head. They have their head going spinning around. I mean, this is all like the Roadrunner and, Wile E. Coyote stuff. I mean, this is like, they would go absolutely berserk over the fact that this is happening. There's no way, right? We are God's chosen people. We are his special race. We are his nation. All the prophecies come through us, yes, until the day of their visitation. And then there will be a break where God will graft in the Gentiles into their vine. And we will come into that vineyard. But listen, we've been brought into that vineyard to bear fruits, not just to take up space. We've come into that vineyard to live the lives of fruitfulness that God intended from them when he was with them near 2,000 years ago. The same thing he expects of the Jewish people, he expects of us. And God forbid if we end up replicating the behaviors of the Jewish religious people versus actually bearing the fruit of what he actually wants us to do and be. But listen, it ain't hard. Especially in the United States of America, where we can call ourselves Christians and act like Christians, talk like Christians, do Christian things, even being somewhat, still to the day, somewhat approved for going to church, right? Still, every president has to say, by and large, that they have a Christian denomination behind their name because it helps them get more votes, even if they're not actually that, right? Discerning that can be ridiculously difficult. We can get approved for that. We can say those kinds of things. But the question is, are our lives bearing the fruit of a life of faith that demonstrates itself in sacrifice to the things and callings of God that He has given to us to bear when He gave us the resources that He gave us in the first place? That's the question. Are our lives actually doing what God wants them to do? Again, like He said in the parable of the two sons, it's not a matter of saying yes and then not doing it. It's a matter of doing it, right? That makes us approved of God. Are we surrendered to the degree that the true work of God's Spirit, the fruit of our lives, demonstrates the life of Jesus Christ in us? That's the question. And He says, whoever falls on this stone will be broken, but on whomever it falls, it will grind him to powder. Now, if you're looking for a nice conclusion to this message, you have to go to the next chapter or something. Like, not even there. I mean, it's going to go downhill from here, right? If you're looking for like a kind of a health and wealth, prosperity takeaway from this, you're not going to find it. Follow Jesus and your life will be perfect. Follow Jesus and you're going to get rich too. Follow Jesus and you can have this. That's not what He says. Right? He says there are only two options when we approach the Lord. One is that the stone falls on us, right? And if the stone falls on us, it says there at the end of verse 44, if the stone falls on us, it will grind us to powder. Right? I don't know that we oftentimes think about the seriousness and power of what we are even proclaiming oftentimes or saying that we're believing when we just give easy, flippant words. I'm trusting Jesus. I'm following Jesus. I love Jesus. Easy, flippant words to this, right? For those who are not, this stone will grind him to powder. Grind him to powder, right? He will win. Again, the smiting stone is going to crush the nations. He's going to rule the world with a rod of iron. And we will rejoice in having it so because He will be the first, dominant world empire ruler. He will be the first ruler that is also good, pure, intentioned, well-intentioned. We will rejoice when He does it, but the rebellion will be put down completely. Shake our fist at heaven, right? You hear people say sometimes, when I get to heaven, I'm going to give the big man upstairs a piece of my mind. And I always think, you should probably keep it. It's not as big as you think it is. That piece of your mind that you've been carrying around for these last couple of years, it's not as big as you think it is, right? You're going to get to heaven, you're going to go, like, okay, tell me what I did wrong in your life. Tell me where I sinned against you. God's going to give me your verdict against me. I don't know, and that's it. The God that we are talking about, the power of God, the might of God, the judgment of God are all vital and real things. They ought to be considered. And interestingly enough, the judgment escalates because the sin escalates. The sin of killing His own Son, they escalated this sin. The judgment will escalate with it. And this is what everybody deserves who doesn't come to faith in Jesus Christ, who are all enemies. It was our sin that drove Him to that cross. For some, this stone will grind him to powder. Now, the other option is the option I hope that we take here this morning, where we come to faith in Jesus Christ. We make a determination of our lives to bear the fruit that He wants from us, to surrender, to yield, to give Him what is rightfully His due. But look, whoever falls on this stone will be broken. You don't come to Jesus and remain as you were, right? I would say probably most of us in this room would say, thank God. Because when I came to Jesus, I wasn't all that good. But every now and then you got somebody that almost feels like they're like a jewel in the kingdom's crown, right? God is lucky to have saved me, right? He's really You don't know what I have to offer the kingdom. You don't know how good I am. I'm pretty gifted, right? I'm not so bad, right? And that kind of arrogance, right, is typically an indication that they've not fallen on the stone. Not yet. Fall on the stone, you'll be broken. This is how we come to faith in Jesus Christ. We're either humbled and broken, or we will eventually be crushed. The choice is ours. And by far, better to be broken than to be crushed, right? But every beneficial life, every fruit-bearing life is broken first. Unless the seed of grain falls into the ground and dies, it bears no fruit, right? It requires a death to self. It requires a surrender and a yieldedness so that his life can be produced through us. And the beauty of it is all this, like, thank God for it. Thank God for it. Thank God that I don't have to be tomorrow what I was yesterday, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. Thank God there's an option of me being transformed into the image of Jesus Christ. Thank God there's an option of me breaking the generational sins, the bents of my parents passed down to the third and fourth generations of those who fear God or those who hate God. Like that there can be a change in who we are. Thank God for it. Whatever brokenness is required on my part, then that's whatever, that's fine. But thank God there's another option. Thank God there's another way. Whatever humiliation, whatever humbling, whatever brokenness. In some ways, the container of spikenard is going to have to be busted open to have the fragrant oil poured out, which is what Jesus is going to offer to us. And then he calls us to it himself. Would you join me here? Would you lay down your life with me? Right? Whoever falls in the stone will be broken, but whoever it falls, it will grind him to power. Now, when the chief priests and Pharisees heard his parables, they perceived that he was speaking of them, right? They're not that dumb, right? They are aware that he is referring to them here in this parable. Now look at their reaction. When they sought to lay hands on him, it says that they feared the multitudes, which is exactly what he told them from back in that little scene in verses 23 to 27, right? He proved to them that their fear of the people was more important to them than their fear of Jesus in his God standing there with him, right? Again, they're more afraid of what the people's reactions are going to be than actually lying to Jesus, right? So that is the driving force in how they're making decisions. They fear the multitudes because they took him for a prophet, but at the same time, it says that they sought to lay hands on him. Remarkably, they are intending at the end of this parable to do exactly what he said they would do in this parable, right? If in a counseling session or a conversation with somebody, I hear come out of their mouth, but I'll never do that. I mean, I might not be perfect. I might be, but I'll never go that far. That's something I would just not do. I try to note it, write it down, right? Sometimes on my day planner, I'll write down, so-and-so told me today that they'll never do that, right? And if I have a close enough relationship to them, I will warn them. Because that arrogance is usually an indicator that you are blind to the potentiality of the sin within your own heart. And God, oftentimes, to prove it to us, will actually have us do the very sins that we said we would never do, that we thought we were above or better than. Or we realize in our own hearts, I'm just as bad as the very person I thought was the worst. I've actually done the very things that I said I would never do, which is an indicator that our hearts haven't been surrendered yet, they haven't been brought down yet, right? Haven't been broken yet. We think we're better than what we are, which is like a danger of humans are goofy weird, are we not? Right? In some ways, we think that we're better than everybody else, and at the same time think that we're worse than everybody else. And we usually think that we're worse than everybody else so that people will tell us that we're better than everybody else. I'm so bad. And what we want is, oh, you're not that bad. You're actually a pretty nice person. No, you're actually really manipulative to think that you're that bad so that you can be told that you're that good. Humans are goofy. Right? But to come to the Lord and throw your life on him and say, God, take my life, take my garbage, take my stuff, take my past, take my history, Lord, you can have it. And to throw our lives on the Lord, right? Yes, it hurts. Yes, there's a brokenness. Yes, there's a submission, right? Jacob, I'm sure, would have loved to have the full function of his hip the remainder of his life, right? But how much better to walk the remainder of his life with that limp and grow into Israel and to leave Jacob behind, to become a different person that could see the work of God in his life and in his family. That happened at the end of the book of Genesis, right? Listen, this is not theory. These are not just words. There's a reality to the work of God to throw ourselves upon him and say, God, please, I'm humbling myself. I'll do whatever you want. I'll go wherever you want. I'll say whatever you want. I want to be who you want me to be. And to throw ourselves on that, to move away from all of the other stuff that we thought or knew, think that we are in some ways, to move away from all of that and say, God, change me. Right? I need a cellular, molecular change, right? Not just in behavior or in information. I need a transformation to make me into something that's actually beneficial. I mean, don't you hate? I mean, I do. I hate about me when I watch me do the things that I hate me doing. Right? Well, so I'll try harder next time. That's just a recipe for disaster. I'll try harder next time. I promise I won't do it. I'll do better next time. I promise. That's just a recipe for disaster. You're going to do it that way or worse next time, right? But to say, Lord, I'm not as good as I thought I was. And I need more grace. And the beauty of it is, he'll give us all of the resources necessary to do exactly what he wants us to do. If we stay abiding in the vine, the fruit will be produced. It's a remarkable thing about the vineyard. He was not only the landowner, he was also the vine. And they didn't know it. Right? For you, for me, right? How are we yielding our lives to the Lord and allowing him to produce the fruit of Christ in us, to change us, to make us different, and to allow that process to go and then to spread it. Friends, family, people that we know at work, these kinds of things, to share this offer to them. Hey, listen, I heard a great message on Sunday. It's about how being busted up by God is a really good thing, right? You too can be broken by God. See, this stuff does not hit you cannot put this on TV, right? This is not popular stuff. You too can be broken by God to ultimately bear the fruit of the life of Christ within you.
We learn that the response God is looking for is surrender. We can come to him with our past, our failures, our assumptions, and everything we thought we were, and we can place it all in his hands and say something like, Lord, take my life, take everything, change me, lead me, make me into who you want me to be. And that's more than behavior modification or gaining information. It's asking God genuinely for transformation. And when we humble ourselves enough to admit that we need more grace than we realized, he's faithful to provide everything necessary for the life and work he's called us to. All right, that's all for now. Thanks for listening to the Word for the Valley podcast. So long, everyone.